like super weird looking at myself in my like viewfinder for a whole GoPro situation right now because one of my hair is being a wreck, but also this is the first time I've like filmed my GoPro with my short hair, and I tried out a new mousse today from Aussie and I'm kind of enjoying the effect, apart from the fact that it's super rainy outside. So since I was outside briefly going to the leasing office, now I am melting. But anyway, it is what it is. So let me, oh well, you get to see my lovely floral shirt, whatever. Anyway, so I have a ton of books this time, kind of. By kind of I mean like definitely. This deck was built too far out. Okay, so anyway, tons of books. I know I kind of think I said something about trying not to really buy books in February so that I could prepare myself for the library sale next month, which is technically only like 2 or 3 weeks away now, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. I think this month I ended up with like probably more books than I've gotten the last few months, but I didn't like go super crazy on purpose. A lot of this was because I actually met up with Eleanor and Thomaston at her parents' house, but they're unfortunately getting ready to sell soon, and just continuing to go through her, some of Eleanor's books, but her mother's books as well, just like we did last May. So I ended up with a lot of more books there. Mostly English this time though, rather than French like last time we looked through stuff. And I also did the same thing with Eleanor, looking through her books, with some that she had brought with her to Marietta a couple weeks prior to that. Yeah, craziness. So yeah, this is already going to be crazy enough as it is, and I have to make sure I have enough time to like food and whatnot before I go to work. And also, in case you didn't realize, this is my like still half night shift, and oh my god. I cannot believe it. Just today and tomorrow, and then I'm moving to a day shift on Monday. I get to start working 9:45 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then every third Saturday, like I've been doing so far, instead of 4:45 to 1 a.m., I get to start doing 8:45 to 5 p.m. So good. Anyway, so yeah, anyway, first things first, books that I read in the month of February, I did get a decent bit in. So of course I started off the month with finishing off the last of Crimes of Grindelwald screenplay for my February Potter challenge, and this was a super quick read. I read it in like a day and a half. I say day and a half because mostly work prevented me from doing some of the reading, but anyway. I also finished Ship of Theseus finally, which had been taking forever. I think I started reading it about November, October, somewhere in there, when I initially borrowed it from Nikki, and because it took 6 read-throughs to get through it all, because I took the method of trying to read more or less chronologically, so I read the initial Ship of Theseus book, then I went through, read the pencil annotations from Eric, then I read the I think blue and black annotations from Jen and Eric meeting each other initially. Then it was like orange and purple, red and something, and then double black, where they both wrote in black. So 6 rereads. And it was pretty interesting. I would love to see some more books like it because it was definitely interesting, kind of reading through it like a puzzle, like going through the book and everything, and having that like extra layer of like interaction and whatnot. So I would love to see more books like it, but unfortunately for now I did end up returning it to Nikki shortly after I finished the book when I went to visit everyone. And I might end up getting my own copy at some point. We'll see how it goes. Right now I'm just kind of satisfied with what I've done so far. But anyway, then I read a library read I started reading A Darker Shade of Magic, which was the very first book in the Sorting Books book club hosted by Abigail's Cup of Tea, who is one of my favorite booktubers right now, and Instagram, Bookstagram. I'm getting used to the terms of things. I'm getting weird. Anyway, so yeah, I read through A Darker Shade of Magic. It's one I've heard several things of from various people on BookTube and whatnot, and I was kind of like, about it initially, but I did go ahead and read it because I was like, it's interesting enough that I would love to, participate in the book club, because most times when I hear about book clubs, the books that they choose, I'm just immediately like, nah, like completely. This one series, I've been like, maybe, but I have all these other books that are more interesting, so it's like, I may come back around to it. So that's one of those where it's like, okay, this is my excuse to go ahead and give it a chance. So I read it from the library, and it was pretty interesting. I'm not sure still whether I want to continue with the series. Like, I could go either way, honestly. I enjoyed the book, but I'm not like dying to continue the series. It works well enough decently as a standalone in my brain so far. But yeah, basically that's what we're looking at there. 1984 by George Orwell. I read some of this in school way back when, in like junior or senior year, when we did projects for it in class and it was required reading. I could not finish it at the time. I don't know why specifically, whether I had their homework and didn't finish it, or I just was struggling to get through it. I don't really remember. I just know that I was really interested in it enough from what I was reading to know that I wanted to finish it when I had a chance, but I just didn't get to it during the time we were studying it in class. So I don't know what happened to my original copy that I had at the time, but I got this I think just in January actually, and I ended up reading through it, and I'm ashamed of my high school self because this literally took like 3 or 4 days to read. Yep. So that's that. But it was interesting to get through, and it's nice to have this checked off of my sort of bucket list of classic books that pretty much everyone has read. Because 1984 is such like a strong influence on everything, and particularly so in the last few years. So yeah, it was kind of crazy at the end too. Yeah, not gonna really talk too much about that specifically, but some torture. Anyway, from that point, I ended up getting 13 Minutes by Sarah Pinborough from the library, and I am fixing to get this returned. I just didn't do it right away because when I go to the library, I feel so motivated, required to come out with another book right away, and I need to get through all the books I already have, so I'm trying to like hold off on returning the book as much as I can without going into late fees, so that when I do get books as I go from the library, I'm not like putting off my own personal TBR too much, but still trying to support things because the library is awesome. But anyway, I kind of struggled a little bit with this book initially because it is, at first I was super confused because there was just like random sprinklings of like British slang and whatnot in here, and at first I totally assumed it was like set in the US or something, and then as I went along I'm like, wait, is this in the UK maybe? Because they're getting increasingly British with their words, but they would still talk sometimes like very cliche American teenagers at some points too, to the point where it almost turned me off from the book a bit. So yeah, but it was definitely very interesting. Basically, this girl Tasha died for 13 minutes because she fell into the river and her heart stopped before a dog walker found her, and she basically is trying to figure out what actually happened, if someone pushed her in or if she fell in, etc. And there's just a very interesting twist that I wasn't really expecting. Like, the first part I was kind of expecting, but like the second one I was like, that's completely different from what I ever would have assumed initially, and I don't think I've ever seen this kind of a plot twist in a book. So in that perspective, it definitely pulled off all the stops there in terms of plot twists. That was a new one. I'm trying to talk more about the books that I've read in my wrap-ups, but at the same time, they're always super long already, so I'm trying to figure it all out. Anyway, after that, I read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo because I'm a bandwagon joiner. I watched the Netflix series. I initially just wasn't too interested, but then I saw the trailer and it got me good. Anyway, so watched the Netflix series and then I went through and read the book. There's actually some decent points to it. Initially, when I heard about this, when it first kind of exploded everywhere ages ago, I was like, I don't ever want to read that because that just doesn't sound like a pleasure read at all, and just I'm not super into reading like about organization and whatnot. And I am terribly one of those people who hoards paperwork and whatnot and gets really sentimental about random things. So I'll admit I have some problems that need working on, but I did appreciate reading through this and kind of seeing the perspective that they have on it, where it's not just about just getting rid of stuff for the sake of just getting rid of all of the extra things. It's about kind of prioritizing, making sure that the things that you do have are the things that you really want. And from that perspective, that's a lot easier to get behind and makes a lot more sense, rather than just you shouldn't live this way because you just shouldn't. And then I went back to finishing out the Me Before You trilogy. I went ahead and continued with After You, and I was not sure where this book was gonna go. Try not to sneeze. At first, after first little bit, I honestly considered looking into not finishing the series. I'm like, I just loved Will and Lou together so much that I just didn't want to see her potentially being with anyone else, because I was not okay with it yet. I was not over it. But as I read further into it, it was kind of interesting. I still feel like Me Before You is a pretty good standalone, and I still ship Will and Lou and wish that he continued forward. But anyway, Sam is pretty legit too. So yeah, this was interesting to kind of read through, and a lot of craziness going on, honestly. I mean, literally, the book more or less starts with her falling off a roof. So yeah, it was interesting. During one of the times that I went to Thomaston with Eleanor to go through the books there, one of the books that I ended up borrowing from her rather than just straight up stealing, with her permission, is The Beatrice Letters by Lemony Snicket. I have been following a series of unfortunate events since like before they even finished the series, and I did not know about this until like a year or two ago, and I was like, what is this? I need to know what this is. I need to read it. But I will be honest, I was a little disappointed. I mean, rather disappointed, honestly, more than just a little bit, but not like thoroughly. Some of it is like letters from Lemony Snicket to the Baudelaire parents, Beatrice, and then some of the letters that are from Beatrice are from like the new Beatrice from the end. So one, it's kind of confusing initially until you figure it out, because like the first letter from her starts out with, "I need your help finding the other 3 Baudelaires, Violet, Klaus, and Sunny." I'm like, wait, hold on, like, wait a minute. That, like, are the parents still alive after all? And then I figured out that it was from the other Beatrice. And yeah. But also just, it's about like Beatrice searching for Lemony, but like the letters are so vague and so coded in that like whole term that like this series goes with, which is great, but it just feels like it gave me more questions rather than like more answers, and I just wish there had been like more to it, sort of. So anyway, it was worth getting a read through, but I don't really know how I feel otherwise. And then finally, the last book I have is Still Me, which is the very last of the Me Before You trilogy. I just started a couple days ago, so I'm only, well, I think I started like the day before yesterday, like at the very end of the day. So I'm only on page 40 right now, and I have my little Harry Potter magnetic bookmark. I discovered the magnetic bookmarks this month at Target, and now I'm obsessed. I have like 3 or 4 sets of Harry Potter ones. It's a problem. That's what I'm reading now, carrying over into March a bit, most likely. And this one's kind of interesting. This is giving me some real Nanny Diaries and Devil Wears Prada-ish vibes, because Louisa has moved to New York to be a like personal assistant to a family that Nathan has been working with after he left with the trainers. And yeah, I haven't gone too far into it obviously because it's only like 40 pages, but it's kind of reminding me of like the Devil Wears Prada and whatnot, with her running a bunch of errands whatnot, but we'll see how it goes. It should be interesting, and then I'll be done with the series. So we have all of these here, plus the Darker Shade of Magic that I returned to the library. So I've read about 7+ books this month. Wait, no, 8 finished books because Ship of Thesis as well. So I finished 8 books, and I'm in the middle of 9 with Still Me. I'm pretty pleased with myself. Anyway, so that is my little reading wrap up so far for the month of February. Now kind of going into my gigantic haul of books that I got this month, because there is a lot and I don't think I've counted them all with the most recent editions. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get into that one. That's the Little Women Puffin' in Bloom edition from Barnes & Noble, because this cover is adorable, and when I discovered that the Little Women copy I had before that I got from the free bin at Second Hand Charles was a Junior Classic Adapted edition, I was like, this is not okay. I traded it in for some books credit, and I ordered a proper copy of thickness that has the best cover I've ever seen. Anyway, Little Moments of Love from Target. I love seeing these little like comics on Facebook and like Tumblr and whatnot, and when I've found little books, like usually I'm not about like graphic novels and whatnot, but like these things are so cute. So that's where we're at. Paris for one, and other stories, because as I've heard many people say for various things on BookTube, I'm Paris trash. If there's things about Paris or France, then I'm pretty much gonna fall in love with it. Also, I wound up watching Midnight Sun recently. I actually went through a few of my YA book adaptions recently because I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna actually get to read them, and I just want to watch them already. So I went ahead and watched them. So I watched through Crazy Rich Asians, I watched through Midnight Sun, I watched through Love, Simon. Yeah. I ran out of patience for myself to get them to my TBR, but it's okay. Anyway, so I I actually found out that they do have a book of Midnight Sun as well by Trish Cook. Apparently the movie was initially based off of a Japanese film, I think, from a while back. So there wasn't initially a book that I researched, because I did want to get a book copy if they had one, but I didn't really see anything about it. But then I saw it in the store and I was like, yes. I also saw that there is a book appreciation copy of like little comic strips and whatnot, and I adore books and I have a problem of my own, so there we go. That's what it is. This one is by Debbie Tung. Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. This is a series, I think I gave it a chance once in like middle or early high school. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I know that when I'm thinking of it, like I get this and like the first little like chapter or two of the host like kind of mixed together with the universes. But I've heard some decent things about it, so I figured I would revisit it, and it's actually fairly chunky books. I'm not surprised, but I really like the newer covers as well. So I've only gotten the one book so far, but I'm intrigued to try giving this series another try. After that, I actually picked up that copy from Gottwall's after a doctor's appointment I had in Warner Robins, and then on my way back from Warner Robins, as I was passing the Gottwalls up in Macon, I ended up getting a text message saying, hey, your copy of Enchantée has come in from your pre-order. So I had to do a little turn off and go pick it up from them. And this is by Gita Trellis. And this is one I initially heard of from Super Space Chick. She posted a copy of her arc of this book, and I'm sorry, but the other cover from her arc was amazing. I wish that that's the cover that they kept, because I like it so much more than having the face in the background, but this one is still very pretty as well, so if I had to settle for one, I guess we'll go with this. But it's like, what is it, like 18th century France and magic, and I'm intrigued. And it just, that cover though, those colors and everything, it's so pretty. Anyway, the selection by Kira Cass. This is another one I've seen on a lot of booktube shows from bookshelf tours, and I was kind of intrigued to see what is going on with these books with all of the beautiful dresses on the covers. And so I went in ahead and read through the synopsis when I found a copy at Gottwall's, and it's interesting. It's like a competition of girls. I don't know. It was like this it gave me this weird like Hunger Games crossover with like The Bachelor or something. So I was like, that's an interesting thing, let's try it. So I got the first book to give it a go. One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. This is another one that's been on my wish list for a hot minute as well. I've been getting kind of interested in some of these thrillers and whatnot, and this is one I've seen kind of everywhere, most particularly in my Amazon suggestions initially, and then I heard a lot about it from BookTube as well, so there we go. On my trip to Marietta, I ended up meeting with Nikki, because we pretty much never get to see each other when I go up to Marietta, because she's usually in school. Well, now I'm usually going to Cumming because I'm visiting the kids where they live there, but she's usually in Kennesaw at school. So I actually met up with her this time while she had a break between classes, and we met up at 2nd and Charles, and then went and got brunch at Reveille. I'm going to pronounce it that way because I refuse to pronounce it the other way that supposedly it's supposed to be said. But anyway, while I was at 2nd and Charles, we first went to the science section because that is Nikki's little niche there, and I just happened to see a spine there, and I'm just like, is there a relation? Because if there is, I am officially getting this book. And it turns out it is the same Harry Potter that we all know and love. And I have a addiction to like behind the scenes books for Harry Potter, and so it had to come home with me. And I went ahead and checked through the rest of the shelf there just in case there was anything else that popped up, and I happened to find a similar book, The Science of Jurassic Park and The Lost World. So that went home with me as well, because that sounds very interesting, seeing like the science behind like the whole process of the whole Jurassic Park theory there. And I also found a super cheap copy of The One Memory of Flora Banks, which has been on my wish list in book outlets for a hot minute, and it's about the same price as it was through Book Outlet, so I ended up nabbing this one as well. And then I finally got around to replacing my little mass market copy of Shopaholic Takes Manhattan with a proper paperback so that it would match the other 2 books in the series that I've gotten so far, because that was pretty much the only mass market paperback copy of the series I've ever seen. So trying to keep everything with my books going forward where they more or less match if I can, and just kind of going from there. The Bookseller by Cynthia Swanson, which was another one that I was interested in from the Book Outlet site that I came across, because little bookshop themed books are also my recent obsession, short of the France whole thing. Then they were having a it was either buy 2 get 1 free or buy 3 get 1 free on the used adult fiction at Second and Charles. And after I picked those books, Nikki was like, I initially had Divine Secrets of Yaya Sisterhood again. Somehow every time I go to get a copy, it ends up being thrown off the list at the last minute. But yeah, I was talking with Nikki. I was like, did you choose like your free book that you're gonna get with your other ones? And she couldn't decide. And then I was like, oh my god, Epiphany, I know the perfect book that we need to get, because I have an email subscription where it tells me like ebook deals every day. And just like 2 or 3 days prior, they had a Goodyear on Kindle for like $2, and so me, my sister, and my mom all got a copy of it on Kindle. And I was like, you know, it would be perfect because we all love the movie so much. We should just get a copy of the book, because I in particular prefer to have like the physical books, because ebooks, I forget about them. I don't get around to them. So yeah. So I went ahead and nabbed a copy. They happen to have exactly 2 copies on their shelf, so I got one and Nikki nabbed one and brought it home as well. After Second and Charles, I went ahead and met up with Eleanor at the Marietta House. We went through books together and I got a few from her there. I think this is the only French book I ended up with this time around, because we more or less pilfered through all the French books the initial time I went over there to her house in Thomaston. But I ended up finding this copy of Comment peut-on être français by Virginia Hewells and Jane Bayer. I think I'm saying that right. And it looks essentially like a textbook sort of situation, where it's got like blanks and stuff. And so yeah. And then she kind of talked me into broadening my selections of books with a few classics that Eleanor has read that I haven't yet, being like, okay, yeah, you need to go ahead and, you know, read these books, so I'm going to force them upon you. So one of them was Emma by Jane Austen. I have not read any of Jane Austen or any of the Brontes, any of that. I haven't read Wuthering Heights. The majority of those like super classic books I've never read before, because I just never have been assigned to read them or anything. So yeah, initially I was like, I should give this a chance because Clueless is based off of it, and Clueless is, of course, 90s classics there. So went ahead with that one. But Eleanor ended up talking me into a couple of others as well. One being The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, I think. Yes. Margaret Atwood. I don't know why it took me a moment to find her name when it's literally across the thing. But yeah. I have not watched the show or anything. I don't know really anything about what it's about, but I know it's been getting a lot of hype from the show recently, and she said it was definitely worth a read, so there we are. And also one that has always kind of jumped out to me on shelves, but I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about reading it officially, is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Maybe saying that right. But anyway, so yeah, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna get a copy, there's a free copy right here. If I'm gonna give it a try, this might as well be the time to go ahead and grab it, because I think she had like maybe 2 copies of this book also. There was a few duplicates. I think there was even a book that was like 3 or 4 copies. It was crazy. And then the last one I brought home with me from Eleanor's collection that she had with her in Marietta from what was left to her parents' house is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, of course. And Christmas Carol is one of the few like old school like Dickens books that I'm just like, you can't hate it. You just can't. And it's an illustrated edition, and it is fairly similar to like the Harry Potter illustrated editions. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner, but essentially same kind of like setup. So there's that. Alex actually had requested that I grab a book from him from Gottwalls. He was wanting to look into getting a copy of Anne Frank, and talked about some other books and whatnot. We actually talked for quite a while about a few different series, because he's in the middle of reading Inkheart. And so while I was at Gottwalls, because I had some credit to trade in for, I ended up getting a couple books of my own as well. So I got a copy of Anne Frank for him, and then I finally splurged on a book that has been one I've been trying to talk myself into budgeting in for ages, which is Robin by Dave Itzkoff, because it's Robin Williams. But it's like $10 everywhere, so it's kind of, well, like 10 to 15, it's like $15 to $18 most places, but they had it like $10, $12 at Gottwalls, so finally got me a copy. The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George, which I was not initially aware of until Nikki actually mentioned it to me. She showed it to me on her shelf when she lent me Ship of Theseus, actually, and she said it was pretty good. And she, I think, also had a copy in like French as well from when she went to Belgium, so that was definitely interesting. So I'm gonna be giving this one a try. The House I Love by Tatiana de Rosny. I have read Sarah's Key and watched that with my mom ages ago, and it was a really good story, and this one kind of intrigued me as well, because guess what? It's another story set in France. The Born Sanction by Eric Van Lustbader. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I have been looking for a copy of The Secret Garden for ages because the 93 movie was adorable and I love it. But when I was looking for it on Amazon to put on my wish list, I could not find a decent cover for it at all. I was like, these covers are weird. I don't like feel drawn to them. And so I didn't end up looking into them initially, but then I found this one at Gottwalls and I was like, okay, this one will do. I actually really have been enjoying the Signet Classics editions of some of these books. So that was all like Gottwalls and everything. And then finally there was the trip to Thomaston about a week ago, where I went through more of the books with Eleanor. I came through with a decent amount there again, and a good chunk. So I ended up getting Anne of Green Gables for South by Ellen Montgomery. I have been holding off on getting Anne of Green Gables initially because I was like, I want to find like some really good editions that like match each other because it's a series. But this is a really cute cover and I didn't have to pay for it, so this will at least get me going for initially, and then we'll go from there and see what we need to do. But anyway, this is long overdue to be read for years. And then I saw this one on the shelf and I'm like, why does this title sound familiar? And then turns out that they also had a copy of Where the Sidewalk Ends nearby, and I'm like, oh my god, you know, Shel Silverstein is amazing for like children's poetry. And then Eleanor was like, oh yeah, the Jack Paletsky books are also pretty similar. I'm like, that's why A Pizza the Size of the Sun sounds so familiar, because it's like children's poems that are similar to the Shel Silverstein kind of style. So since I only have a sidewalk, Where the Sidewalk Ends, I snagged a copy. And also some long-awaited additions to my library. I have Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Peterson. The movie is amazing. Anna Sophia Robb was adorable, and I need to read this book. And then another one that Eleanor kind of talked me into was The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, one I've kind of been like, whatever about as well, because I never really got assigned to read it and everything. But she was like, no, you're gonna take that with you. Similar for The Great Gatsby as well by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I never really knew anything about it, wasn't really interested, never got assigned to it in school, though one of my friends was reading it for her, I think, AP class at one point. And I just still didn't really know anything about it, so I just kind of like, whatever. But then I saw a lot from when the movie came out with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I was like, okay, this isn't like super random classics like a lot of the required reading are. We might give it a chance at some point. But it was low on my list. But they had like 3 copies at her house, so we're giving it a go. Yeah. Still haven't watched the movie yet though. Then another random one, I've got a couple of them that I've never heard of before that Eleanor highly suggested. One being A Curse's Darkest Gold by Elizabeth C. Bunce. It basically is kind of like a Rumpelstiltskin sort of story. So, as a fan of Once Upon a Time, there we go. And then there is The Outcast of 19 Schuyler Place. I don't remember specifically what this one was about. Something where she's going to like a summer camp, and I don't know what the rest of it was. But she said it was really good, and initially I had put it back, but then she's like, no, give it a try. Going through another one of her shelves, this is one of Eleanor's specific books rather than her mother's, but we have Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, which is one that of course is like practically a childhood classic for most people, and I've heard about it for ages and ages and ages and ages, since I was a kid even, but never got around to reading it as far as I can remember. So we're gonna fix that one. We have a few other Gottwal's books there, one being The List by Patricia Ford, which is one I heard initially from Emma Books on BookTube, where basically like they've basically restricted the words that people are allowed to use to a specific list of words, and I don't remember the specifics of beyond that, but basically there's a list of only 500 words, and that sounds like an interesting concept. I finally found a copy of The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling. I have been meaning to try and look into this series for a while, but nowhere pretty much had a copy of the first book in the series. Everyone had like The Silkworm and the other one, which I don't remember the name of, but no one really had a copy of the first one, so I never got around to it until I finally found this one at Gottwal's. and I wasn't gonna look that in its face and say no when it's one of the cheaper places I can find it. Last was Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. I've found a lot of Lauren Oliver books on my wish list because there's some interesting storylines. So that was going to be the end of my book haul for February, except there were some developments within the last day. As it turns out, while we were throwing out all of the things, because we were A, doing general tidying up lately, and B, we had a inspection of the apartment that we were prepping for yesterday. We threw out all of the things, all of the boxes, cleaning everything up, unpacking things with the last of transferring our computers both into the second bedroom. And while Ed was breaking out some of the trash, he found someone had thrown out a bunch of books and movies at the dumpster. It was like on the edge where it was just like chilling there when he was throwing out the boxes. So he ended up bringing it home being like, do you want any of these? Because all of the books and the movies were in like new condition. I think one of them is still in like the plastic wrap for the movies. I was like, what kind of craziness? Like, this person had the entire Harry Potter series on DVDs and there's like no smears on any of the discs except one disc from Chamber of Secrets. All of the rest of them are perfectly clean, like they have the inserts in them. Part 2 of Deathly Hallows even has the freaking ultraviolet code letter still in it. And they were just throwing them out. Not donating, not selling, just tossing them in the trash. Like, I can't. As a full Potterhead and everything, I cannot just stand by and be okay with this. Like, I understand if you don't want to keep your copies, if you upgraded, or if you just didn't want them anymore. Okay, whatever, to each their own. But you don't just throw them away if they're in this good condition. Like, I can understand if you have like kids and whatnot and everything's scratched and it doesn't work anymore, that's fine. But when they're pretty much in new condition, you do not just throw it away. Like, give it to someone else, donate it, sell it, I don't care, but don't just trash it. That's literally a waste of Harry Potter. And even if outside of it, like, still, that's just ridiculous. But anyway, there was like Orphan Black in there as well, something about Vikings. I think that was in the packaging still. And then they had a few books. They had a couple of Vampire Diaries books. They had something else there. I forget. It's over there somewhere. And then they had these 2 books from the 100 series, and I was kind of interested in the show a few times there. I haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but seeing the books pretty much every time I go to Gottwald's, and I'm like, maybe I should give it a try, but I don't really know. But these books literally are in fabulous condition, so there we go. They're joining the library. And the Harry Potter DVDs are going to Eleanor because she does not have her own set. And I'm just like, so apparently the whole series of Harry Potter just fell into our laps because someone just didn't want them. So we're taking care of that for you. They found a good home. Anyway, it has been like an hour getting all of this taken care of. I am officially done with all of my book hoarding. Oh my god, so many books. Let me see if I can even like stack all of this in a reasonable manner where we can take a look at the whole inventory of insanity here. Let's see. Yeah, we have a lot of books this month. That's only I forgot I have all of these over here. I'm like, why is there only like 18? I definitely have more than that. I forgot the 2 extra stacks that are still sitting over here. Oh my god. So let's see, there's 18 in this stack. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38 books.